So first off, the best way to fix any movie like this is to not negate half your audience in the first place. Instead of gender swapping everyone and saying, hey, all you males out there, go fuck yourselves. Get the best actors of either gender. Now, let's take a look at why the original Ghostbusters was good before we take a look at why this one was not. In Ghostbusters, the first thing you have is a cast of 3 amazing improv actors who've had a lot of chemistry together for a long time before making the movie. Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis had all worked together on multiple other projects and had a lot of fun with each other. Ernie Hudson was a veteran actor who had done a lot of TV and made-for-TV movies as well as a couple of flicks mixed in. Oddly, Winston represents the common man who needs a job, doesn't necessarily buy into whatever these Ghostbusters do, but is willing to give it a shot to pay his bills, something most of this audience can relate to. When you look at the original Ghostbusters, it is a comedy and a thriller. If you remove the horror elements, it still works as a comedy. If you remove the comic elements, it still works as a thriller. And the comedy is timeless. It's based on taking everything seriously. The characters believe in their world, their roles, the fact that the ghosts are real, or in the case of Walter Peck, the fact that ghosts are not real and will do anything to prove they are not real. Most of the comedy comes from improvised spots by straight men. A straight man is someone who maintains composure while the people around him react. Think Abbott and Costello. Abbott was a straight man while Costello did the wild and crazy things. It's kind of the same thing in Ghostbusters, except the comedy is the delivery and the straight man is every character, except Rick Moranis, who is clearly the comedian. But again, it's the world being taken seriously that makes Ghostbusters 1984 work so well. It's why Ghostbusters 2, which focused more on the comedy, was much less revered. It's still entertaining and has a lot of darkness to it, but the characters didn't take the world and the ghosts as seriously. You never felt the impending doom of the original movie despite all the dark comedy. Fast forward to Ghostbusters 2016. The 2 biggest problems were the marketing and the focus on the comedy. The marketing kept focusing on how this was some sort of sequel to the original Ghostbusters. It's a completely different universe. In fact, at the end, they hinted at facing Zool in a sequel to this movie. Nothing about Ghostbusters 2016 has anything to do with the original, and the few things they threw in there to reference the original just made the reboot worse, as it reminded you that you could be watching a much better version of the movie. The focus on the comedy. Again, this was the downfall of Ghostbusters 2. If the characters don't take the world they're in seriously, why should the audience? In a movie like Ghostbusters, comedy should be an element of the movie, but never the focus. When you start out with Gabe from The Office scamming people and then getting attacked, don't worry folks, he's just fine, he got slimed. And then you have your main characters getting slimed as well as they try to prove ghosts are real and upload it to YouTube looking like hysterical assholes. Again, why would anyone want to watch this movie? That's the first 5 minutes. Jokes that fall on their face. Written jokes that fall on their face. Again, part of what made the original so good was improvised moments. Moments where the actors felt that they should throw something in there to lighten the mood. Not moments where the director, who also co-wrote the film, and the co-writer giggled to themselves constantly. Trust your actors. Next was the storyline. The storyline was a giant mess. So they start with 2 students? Professors? Somethings? Who are at some joke school working on a way to see if ghosts are real, and one of them wrote a book which comes into play with the villain later, but why? And then you have a villain who is bullied. So he read the book and uses it to open a portal to bring ghosts into the world to get revenge on the people who bullied him. No, wait. He uses it to get revenge on the world for not stopping the people who bullied him? Or something? Again, not well defined by any stretch of the imagination. Nobody is well defined in this movie. You have Leslie Jones's character, who is a subway token officer, but is also an expert on New York City architecture, which never comes into play. At first, she's supposed to be Winston, the audience's ticket into this movie. The normal person who gets in and does her best, but is lost. But they wanted to make her super smart. Cool. But then they never use that aspect of her, so instead she's useless. They have Kate McKinnon, who is a cross between Venkman and Egon. Oddly, she's the best part of the movie because she's the closest thing they have to a straight man. She's the inventor of almost everything they use, but how does she come up with the ideas? Why do her inventions work? What are they based on? Why do they constantly need upgraded weapons? Unlike the original, which had one type of proton pack and one type of trap, and they were dangerous as fuck, as told to us by the characters and even shown by their reactions to certain situations, once again, there was zero direness in having what amounts to be personalized nuclear weapons on these ladies' backs. Chris Hemsworth is supposed to be a combination of Rick Moranis and Annie Potts. Excuse me going between character names and actor names. Hemsworth is fantastic. I love him and he's a great comedian and is even funny in this movie. But he's absolutely wasted in the role because they have 500 comedians and only Kate McKinnon as a sort of straight man. I won't even get into Melissa McCarthy or Kristen Wiig. They both are who they are. They're fine, they're good actresses, but just have nothing that makes them stand out in this movie. A few other things to get into about the movie before I get into how to fix it. So, Katie Dippold was the other co-writer for the script. Before the movie, she is a writer for several TV shows, including Parks and Rec and Mad TV. This movie feels very much like a sketch comedy show thrown together, and I think she's the biggest reason for that. Instead of writing a feature-length movie and breaking it up and throwing some comic elements into it, it feels like a bunch of sketches were written and then stitched together into a feature-length movie. The opening scene in the haunted house, the scene where Kristen Wiig gets slime vomited on by the ghost, the scene where Leslie Jones has the massive ghost roosted on her shoulders, it's all very much like Paul and Katie sitting in a room and going, wouldn't it be hilarious if, and then combining all of those elements. The last thing I will say before fixing this movie is that it feels like a bad buddy cop movie that got turned into a Ghostbusters reboot. Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy have chemistry together, and they seem like they're good friends, which would make sense if you could have had them in sort of a Ray and Pete thing. Even throw that together with Kate Egon, and you could have something going there. But when everything is scripted and focused on the comedy, it just falls apart, and this movie absolutely fell apart. How to fix this movie. Finally, the moment you've been waiting for. Alright, first of all, and this is a must, throw everything out that references the original movie, especially the marketing. This movie has nothing to do with that movie. Don't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Secondly, scrap the haunted house, the joke school, the vomiting ghost, the YouTube clip. Just get rid of it. It's shit. You've already cut 20 minutes out of the movie, which means people will be more likely to watch it because it's not over 2 hours of crap. People can deal with short amounts of crap, but they have limits. So, instead, you start the movie with Leslie Jones' scene. Start the movie in the subway, but instead of having the villain be a guy who got bullied, have it be a legit scientist who was kicked out of his own laboratory or something. He used the side rooms and the tunnels to build his own lab because there's an enormous amount of electricity running through those areas. Many places are abandoned. There's constantly construction of some sort going on down there. He figures he can get away with doing his research down there. Between his own findings and Kristen Wiig's book, he's finally cracked the code with communicating with the other side. But it didn't stop with communication. He accidentally opened a portal to the spirit realm, and the spirits have gotten loose. As he's running equipment down there, that's when Leslie Jones notices something, and again, much of her scene can go on. In the meantime, Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy have been noticing spikes in their readings of paranormal activity. They already own/rent an office space, but their money is running out because they're just investigators, not Ghostbusters yet. They do kind of a ghost hunters type of thing where they investigate paranormal activity, but it's mostly crackpots who can't pay them, and they've been stiffed on a bunch of bills. They're talking about going out of business. If only they could find a legit haunting, get their names out there, etc. Enter Leslie Jones, who caught their names in the Yellow Pages, or a flyer, or maybe because she's an expert on New York buildings, she just knows they exist. Whatever. Leslie Jones is fairly well off. Her parents used to be architects, which is why she knows so much about the buildings, but Leslie has no mind for business, and her parents died, and she inherited a ton of money and is willing to pay to find out what's going on in the subways. They spend time doing so. Find the laboratory and the scientist, who is Kate McKinnon. Yay! We get rid of another useless character and give meaning and reason for the ladies to all be together. Kate's been trying to close the portal, but can't figure out how to do it. She's invented some things that can help. They all go to Kristen and Melissa's office and come up with a plan to close the portal with combined scientific knowledge. They go back and close the portal, but now ghosts are loose in New York City. There's reports all over the place. They come up with proton packs and traps and a storage container. You can even go through multiple iterations of the packs. Why not? Just not 50 upgrades that are meaningless and just for laughs. As they do this, they rebrand the Paranormal Investigation Service into the Ghostbusters. They start making money, hire on Chris Hemsworth, who is a less stupid version of his character, and bust ghosts. As they store them, they realize they need to send the ghosts back from where they came and need to rebuild the portal. In doing so, they open it wide and their storage containment busts open, releasing all the ghosts they caught, as well as the ones in the other world. They do a thing where they reverse the flow of the portal so the ghost gets sucked back in and shuts. World saved, everyone's happy, and the story is watchable, and the movie is 90 to 100 minutes of cleaned up entertainment. Epilogue. Once the door is opened, it's never fully shut, and we see a crack in reality where a spirit escapes into their world once again. Maybe it's Zool, maybe it's Stay Puft, maybe it's Slimer, or whatever, who cares? But it allows the sequel tease. Thus fixing the entire movie, allowing for a franchise to go on, allowing the expansion of the Ghostbusters universe, yada yada yada. Doesn't blame it on all the fucking girls. It just makes it for a much, much better movie in the long run. And the short run. because it'd be an hour and a half instead of over 2 hours, which is the other big problem that these movies tend to have. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, hit that like button. Subscribe for more content, ring the notification bell, and follow me on social media. Links in the description down below.